Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Welcome into Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services out of Eastland, Texas. And it is September 2024, almost election time. It's right around the corner. So why not? Let's talk about politics. Isn't that what everybody wants to talk about these days? Just kidding. No, we're going to talk about taxes, but we're going to talk about it in relation to the candidates' proposals. In fact, I think no one really wants to talk about politics these days, but hey, facts are facts. We are approaching this presidential election, so politics kind of need to be at the top of mind if you're going out there to vote. And as we dive into this today, I will give you a peace of mind, okay? We are not going to provide any biased content. We are not anything from Fox News to CNN to ABC, any of those. We're going to keep the topic narrowed down to one thing, and that is taxes and the current tax proposal of each candidate, because I do think it is important to know, what these candidates have lined up and how they're going to affect you. We're not going to talk on this. We're not going to be talking micro scale of how this affects the debt or the country or anything in that regard. We're going to talk about the direct impact that it has on, some of the families that we serve. What they see as most common things. So we kind of picked it. We cherry picked out of this. I will say there's some phenomenal information out there at the Tax Foundation that you can go and retrieve. And we're going to have that in our newsletter, a link to that. So if you're not subscribed, please go on and subscribe, www.kennedy-financial.com. Subscribe to our weekly life lessons. Just like this podcast, we coin new information that we find relevant to the families we serve each and every week. We're out there doing our research and we want to share it with you. That's what we find important. And we come across stuff every single week that honestly can be life-changing if you put it into practice. And so we put that into that newsletter. We put it into our podcast. We've been big on education since 1989. I think that's the one constant in this second generation firm. And our whole goal is just to help you live life on purpose. And so why not vote on purpose, right? But before we get into that, I thought, heck, we're going to talk about politics. I need to lighten the load a little bit. So I want to tell you about a worldwide survey that was conducted by the United Nations. Okay, the only question was asked was this: would you please give your honest opinion about solutions to the food shortage in the rest of the world? Okay, I'm going to repeat this question. Would you please give your honest opinion about solutions to the food shortage in the rest of the world? So the survey was a huge failure, okay? In Africa, they didn't even know what food meant. In Eastern Europe, they didn't know what honest meant. In Western Europe, they didn't know what shortage meant. And in China, they didn't know what opinion meant. And in the Middle East, they didn't know what solution meant. And in South America, they didn't know what please meant. And in the USA, they didn't know what the rest of the world meant. Oh, I thought that was just too ideal for everything going on in the world today. I don't know. This is Alex and Jeremy Minshall posted it on this laughfactory.com. And I just thought, heck, we're just in a mess. And everybody knows it. But what can we do about it, right? And so that brings me to one other thing. Not only are we going to talk about the election, but I've got a little treasure for you at the end of the show to help you get through this election, and you're not going to want to miss that. So stay tuned. When we come back right here on Life Planning 101, we are going to be talking about the 2024 election and the candidates' tax proposals. You're not going to want to miss it. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. Again, my name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services, and we are talking the 2024 election and the candidates' tax proposals. Now, as I mentioned in the first segment. What we are not going to do is we're not going to get biased here. What we're not going to do is we're not going to talk on a macro or a governmental or an economical scale. We're going to keep this at the level in which is most directly important to you at current, is how this affects the majority of the families that we serve. Okay, so here, let's get started. We're nearing the end of what's called 2016 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It's tax reform, and it was enacted in Congress under President Trump. And we have done several shows about this. If you have missed this, you need to go back and listen. I cannot tell you the importance of that because of the potential of all this expiring and the planning that you need to get done before that happens may be just absolutely paramount to your future and to your children's future, honestly. So very, very important. Go visit us online, www.kennedy-financial.com, and go listen to that. But let's back up to this. It was enacted under President Trump. In fact, he's very, very proud of it. He's talked about it so many times. And obviously, he's a supporter of extending tax reform, which is set to expire in 2026. And in fact, he would like to see it made permanent. Now, for reasons that we have talked about in these other shows, we don't see that happening on a grand scale, just because it would take, the saying, it takes an act of Congress. Well, it takes more than that to make some of this permanent. It could actually take ratification from governors of the 50 states. It's unreal to see what would take with some of this. But he talks about making that permanent. So from the perspective of the families that we serve, there's a few critical points to make here if this is extended or parts of it are made permanent, okay? Number one, the potential qualified business income deduction of 20% remains in place. I was just looking at a tax return just a few minutes ago that the qualified business income deduction was about $500,000 for this family. So that equated, and this is a small business owner, and so that equated, if you put that at a rate of 37% under the current tax code of $500,000, you're looking at about $185,000 of tax savings that he wants to see remain in place. And I think the whole goal of that was to really just drive more small businesses growth and such. So we'll see what happens on both sides of that. But he's been vocal about that remaining in place. Number two, expanded tax brackets, lower tax rates, and higher standard deductions remain in place. So if you actually go back and look at the 2016 tax brackets, I recommend you do this actually. Look at those tax brackets and then look at what they are today and see the difference between that and how that would affect you. Because here's the bottom line, okay? Most of the families that we serve incurred lower taxes after tax reform. I mean, we do a ton of looking at tax returns, right? So we actually saw family by family and how they were affected. And I say most because there were a few W-2 high income earners and a few others with higher property tax or state income tax that incurred higher taxes. And so I think it's a piece by piece, case by case basis. And to really know what you're looking at, you need to go and look at those. But you would be looking at the 2016 tax brackets and you'd be looking at this year's tax brackets. Obviously, there's going to be some adjustment for inflation. So just keep that in mind. That's another note. Number three, the top income tax rate would remain at 37%. So when tax reform went into place, it was 39.6%, and this drops it to 37%. The estate and the gift tax exemptions amounts remain at $13.61 million per person. That's also $27.22 million per couple, and that's adjusted for inflation each year. This is extremely critical for a lot of farmers and ranchers and small business owners that we do serve. We are fighting up against that number a lot. And so that's a big difference in what it was before. So if tax reform expires, it basically gets cut in half. Okay. So that 13.6 is going to go somewhere between 6 and 7 million because again, it's adjusted for inflation. So we don't really know what that number will be exactly in 2026. We just know it would be about half. And that means between a husband and wife, there would be about 14 million-ish of exemption that could be used. So, going back to what I said, you have to listen to previous articles because a lot of people are just counting on this election to happen and that to remain in effect. Well, this election, if you're counting on President Trump to get reelected, there's a lot of work because the Senate and the House and President Trump all have to sign off on extending this, not making it permanent, but extending this. So if they don't sweep, that's not happening. So it's very important to understand that. Number 5, the corporate tax rate would remain at 21% unless President Trump is able to get his wish, which he wants to drop it again. And in that case, it would actually go to 20%. He drops it by a whopping 1%. Don't understand the science behind that, but okay. But that's nonetheless. We talked about President Trump's proposal first because I feel like it's the easiest. It's kind of what we're already experiencing today. It's the tax environment we're experiencing today. He does have a few other little notable items in his current proposal. Number 1, no tax on tips. Number 2, no tax on workers produced by overtime. Number 3, U.S. tariffs on all U.S. imports. There's a huge argument as to how that ultimately affects you. Does that actually raise the price of goods, or does it just make U.S. companies more competitive, which forces you to buy the higher priced goods? Or is there other workarounds? He's always saying that he's going to make them pay for it. And so I think it's an important thing to navigate in his overall economic plan of if he actually lowers inflation, but those cost of goods go up, does it hurt you? I don't know. I really don't. I think it would take a large amount of research, and I'm sure there's some out there on that if you really want to dive into what that is. And obviously increased tariffs on China imports. China's kind of got the thorn in his side, I suppose. They get the worst of it because they get their own little designated bullet point here. But nonetheless, there is President Trump's overall kind of proposal in regard to what we would think were the most precedent ideas or precedent bullet points for the families that we serve. So when we come back, we're going to move on to Vice President Harris's proposal. It is a little bit more extensive. Like I said, we kind of rushed through President Trump just simply because that's kind of the tax landscape we're living under today. So you're not going to want to miss it right here on Life Planning 101. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. We are talking about the 2024 election and the candidates' tax proposals, which I thought gave favor to this awesome quote by a fictitious character in Mad Magazine, Alfred E. Newman. He said, "Today, it takes more brains and effort to make out the income tax form than it does to make the income." Oh, isn't that true? Man, keeping up with it is crazy. I cannot tell you how many year-end acts I have read between Christmas and New Year's over my career. It's unreal, and it just keeps getting more and more complicated. And even when you do this every single day and you kind of have a gist of it, you still have to go back and read things specifically because it's always within the specific language. So why not? Let's just add a few more cues to it. President Trump, Kamala Harris. See what we got. Let's move on to Vice President Harris's proposal. If you want to go back and listen to President Trump's, it was in the previous section. But basically, his ideal is to extend tax reform, if not make it permanent. Vice President would like to just let it fizzle out. That's the goal. So that's going to, if you think about all the things that we kind of talked about in President Trump's proposals, they're negated, right? From the estate tax exemption, it would revert to the pre-2017 figure of roughly 6 to 7 million. And she's actually talked about tightening some of the rules further, such as one of them would be unrealized capital gains at death above $5 million of exemption. So example, you have a portfolio that has however much in gains in it, And if it's above that $5 million of exemption, your heirs would realize that and pay taxes on it. Okay. So there's some tightening in here, but that would expire. Another would be the corporate income tax rate. So corporations, that was changed to 21% with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. She would actually like to see that go to 28%. The top income tax rate would expire at 37% and go back to 39.6% for incomes above $400,000 is her proposal. And I think that kind of sums that up. And obviously the qualified business income deduction would disappear. There's some other things that might be pertinent. But let's get into some of these other things that don't have to really do with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expiring. Okay, so for example, there was a business loss limitation that was passed in 2021. She'd like to see this made permanent and basically capture losses at $289,000 within a business. And it may not sound like a big deal, but if you are a business owner, you need to make sure and look into this because it really affects how your net operating loss, your carryover rules work. It's very important to understand the logistics of what that actually is and how that might be applicable to you. Capital gains tax. So this includes your qualified dividends and your capital gains. The tax rate on that, her proposal is to tax it at 28% for incomes above $1 million. So currently, capital gains tax rates, the highest is a 20% rate. Now, there is what's called the net investment income tax rate right now of 3.8%. So effectively, that makes a capital gains rate 23.8%. But in Vice President Harris's plan, she wants to do that capital gains rate at 28%. And then expand the net investment income tax from that 3.8 to 5% on incomes above $400,000. Now, did you get all that? Woo! This is a tough one. So ultimately, the highest rate on capital gains tax would go from 23.8 up to 33%. Okay, that's what you need to know for incomes over $1 million. And so, like I said at the beginning of the show, there's some really awesome charts on this that the Tax Foundation has put in place. We've got those on our website, www.kennedy-financial.com, in our weekly life lessons. So you can click on it from there and be able to see that. I think sometimes a visual is helpful, especially when you're talking about this many numbers, because there's just a lot here. So we talked about that. We talked about, this was another one. So the 1031 like kind exchanges, real estate exchanges, where, you sell a piece of real estate and you have the option to 1031 it and defer the gains into the next property. She wants to limit that to $500,000 of gains is what's in Vice President Harris's proposal. And here's some additional tax incentives that she has. Okay, there's a number of them. No tax on tips, just like President Trump. They see eye to eye on one thing. It's pretty impressive. Incentives for affordable housing builders. Okay, tax credits for first-time home buyers, up to $25,000 for 4 years. She also wants to make the current child tax credit permanent, increase the amount for newborns to $6,000 in the first year. She wants to permanently extend the earned income tax credit expansion for workers without qualifying children, and expand the Section 195 deduction limit, which is for startup businesses to be able to deduct an amount, and expand that from $5,000 to $50,000. That's pretty awesome. So again, you definitely have all of this to be able to access on our website. You can also access it on that Tax Foundation. And I just encourage you to really understand what these tax plans mean for you. I think it is important to understand what they mean on a macro scale, because as a U.S. citizen, I think we have our patriotic duty is to vote, but vote with integrity, which means that we have done our research, we have done our homework, which brings me to one last thing. There's a little bit of, drama in this election, right? And I think a lot of us go through what's called election anxiety without even knowing it. When I talk to people, I've just noticed there's just hesitation, there's fear. It's keeping them awake at night, honestly. And, that's one of the things that we talk about is what is keeping you awake night, and nothing should be. And so I just want to leave you with this. I want to leave you with some tips to help you with that election anxiety when it starts to feel a little overwhelming, because I have a feeling that it's going to get worse before it gets better, right? And at the end of the day, we're going to have a president and we're going to keep moving forward. And I don't know one person that's going to quit going out there and buying their toothpaste and their cereal and their gasoline and doing the things that they need to do to live life. So it's not this big event like we all thought Y2K was going to be either. So at the end of the day, we just need to know that we can only control what we control, right? And there's an app, I get things from it all the time. It's called calm.com. And it's actually, I think they do meditative stuff on here. But they had the 8 mindful tips for managing election-related anxiety. And here's what they said. Number 1, limit news consumption whenever you need to. Number 2, practice deep breathing when you feel overwhelmed. You know, women just stop breathing. Like, I catch myself, hold my breath. I think I've actually done it on this show today. We need to exhale. I think there was a movie about that. Move your body in ways that feel supportive, okay, to reduce stress. I think we do sit a lot. I know I sit a lot. It's important to get up and move around. Think about different things. Look up every once in a while. Quit putting your head down, looking at your phone. Look up. Stare at something pretty in the sky. Get support from your people. You know, I think it does help to actually talk about things, maybe not talk about the election, but how you're feeling. And maybe that needs to be with your professionals as well, because sometimes it does have to do with the economics or the finances behind it. And you need to talk about those things. You don't need to bottle them up. Focus on what you can control to ease your worry. You can control, just like we said today, doing your patriotic duty and starting in the home. If you don't like what's going on in the world, start in your home. Start fixing it there. Start fixing it in your community. That's what's important. Take breaks from social media. In fact, take a flippin' vacation from social media. Why not? Until election day. You are probably already know who you're going to vote for. So if you do, then just don't even listen to it. Why listen to it? Right? Add your favorite mindfulness practice to your day. You know, whether it's yoga, meditation, tai chi, just breathing, playing with your kids, riding your horse, whatever it is. And number 8, get creative or crafty in your spare time. So do some drawing, coloring. I actually like to doodle. I doodle all over the place. I don't know why it reduces stress, but it works for me. So anywho, election and taxes. Like I said, we can all have a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of stress during these times. So it's just important to be able to get in touch with what is important. And at the same time, remember your patriotic duty. Remember that we are Americans and we are living in a democracy, and it is our job. It is our patriotic duty to go to those polls with knowledge. So I highly recommend that you do so. Happy reading and happy voting from all of us here at Kennedy Financial Services. And just remember that we're here to help you live life on purpose. God bless you. Until next week, right here on Life Planning 101.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Don't forget to learn how our sister company can assist you with all of your tax and consulting needs. You can find out more at briscoeandassociates.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group, LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group, LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.